Welcome to the Live Better, Sell Better podcast with your host, Kevin Dorsey of Inside Sales Excellence, the #1 Patreon group and YouTube channel for tech sellers and tech sales leaders, where we dive in deep for tactical advice on how to book more meetings, close more deals faster, and lead sales teams to success. But we don't stop there. We also focus on the person in salesperson. We talk about mindset, goals, time management, and so much more. So thank you for listening. And if you're interested, head on over to patreon.com/inside sales excellence. Now with that, grab a notepad, get ready, and let's dive into the good stuff.
How much of your workday is actually spent selling? Like, be honest, I won't tell. This can stay between us. Because between internal meetings, back and forth emails, updating Salesforce, salespeople, Dooley found nearly half of a rep's day is spent on anything but sales. But what really gets me is how much this hurts sellers. All those distractions are killing rep earning potential by 66% and quarterly revenue by 38%. It is a lose-lose. That is why top performing sales teams like Asana, Figma, and Intercore use Dooley, the connected workspace that automates all the CRM work reps hate and routes deals to close wins faster with guided playbooks and call templates, giving sales leaders the clean, accurate data they need to run a winning sales process without the wasted admin hours. Get a lifeline for your sales pipeline. Visit Dooley.ai to learn more and try it free.
And with that, let's get back to the show.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Live Better, Sell Better podcast. This is your host, Kevin Dorsey, aka KD. And today we're going to talk about building a mindset. How to actually build the right mindset necessary to not only have a long-lasting career in sales, but also a fulfilling career in sales. Because there is a huge difference between lasting and enjoying, lasting and loving. And I truly believe that if you have the right mindset, you can love sales and sales will love you right back. And everyone talks mindset, but today we're going to talk about how to build a mindset that works. And I'm so pumped to have Kevin Mulrane with me on the show today. He's the CRO at Onramp. He's the podcast host of Addicted to Growth. And there might be an addiction problem here on how much he's been growing because he's been in the game. 4 to 5 time VP of sales, sales executive, sales trainer, recruiter. Like he's done it all and still having some fun. So we're going to talk about his mindset, how he's built it, what's got him here, and I cannot wait to dive in. Kevin, my man, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you, man. No, I'm fired up. This is a topic I love. It's a topic that I think is near and dear to my heart. It's why, to your point, it's why I'm still in it after 15 years and absolutely loving it, man. So excited to dive in.
Let's go, baby. So you know why people love this show, right? Like we get into the tactics, no backstories, none of that. And so what I think is important from the onset is like when you say mindset, what do you mean? Right? Because I think it's a word that gets thrown out a lot. But when you talk about having the right mindset for sales and success and fulfillment, what does mindset mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's what's between the ears, right? It's how you approach your day. It's how you approach your month. It's really how you just approach the entire sales career, sales path, right? I think what's unique about sales and what can be tough, there's rejection, there's volatility. So if you go after with the right mindset, like you said, it can be very fulfilling, but it can be long lasting. I fell into sales. I built a really exciting and long lasting career in sales. So, and I attribute that 100% to my mindset. I didn't really know what I was getting into. So I think having the right mindset, the way you approach your day, your clients, your teammates, everything can really go a long way for you.
And so let's go a layer deeper there, right? When you say the right mindset, what are some of the things that you think make up the right mindset, right? Like what are some of those layers below it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think, first and foremost for me, I was not the quote unquote natural salesperson, right? Like I was fearful of cold calling. I think the first cold call I made, the person picked up the phone and I hung up the phone, yes. Right? Like that kind of stuff. So I think the first thing that I really learned was I had to embrace uncomfortable situations. I had to make uncomfortable things feel comfortable. And so, you have to seek it. And I started to try and apply things in my personal life, things I did maybe as an athlete that I could then apply to my professional life, and really chasing, right? Like, how do I embrace and chase the discomfort, chase the pain? Because that's when the growth happens. And so, I always love to, it's like when you do really, really hard things, like making cold calls aren't that difficult, right? So you kind of start small, you build habits, you kind of remind yourself like the path and the growth of the experience, right? I always try to like look back and reflect, like, wow, like look at the growth, like the discomfort is worth the pain. So, that kind of stuff I definitely try to do, but the discomfort piece for me was a big part. And it's one of the things why I almost fell out of sales. And I'm really happy I didn't.
Right. And so when you talk about like chasing the pain or seeking discomfort, like what were some of those things that you did, right? Like, was that exercise? Was it, just going up and getting rejected at the bars? Like what did you do to kind of train yourself a little bit in this, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable? Because even that phrase, right? It was one of my, what's the word I'm looking for? It was one of my mantras for a long time, but it's also an oxymoron. How can you get comfortable with the uncomfortable? Uncomfortable is the lack of comfort. So how do you actually blend that?
Yeah. So I think for me, like I said, I try to tie a lot of the things I did in my personal life into my professional life. And so being an athlete, fitness, those are things that are just, I'm naturally passionate about and are part of my daily life. So like when I was working out, I would chase the pain and it hurt, but that this is where growth happens. And so I was able to take that and then say, okay, well, in my sales career, when I'm first starting off, what are those uncomfortable things for me? And one, cold calling strangers, right? Really, really. I was the guy that was like hiding under his desk with the headset on. Like it was terrible. Objections, right? I would get objections and I would just be like, yeah, I'll send you the email, and I get off the phone. Then I have my manager like over my shoulder, right? So I quickly identified those uncomfortable situations for me and identified them as these are growth opportunities, right? So I understood if I get good at this is the positive outcome that I can get from it. So I think it's just identifying that. And then it's practice, man, right? It's finding really good mentors. It's listening to your calls. But, I'd get those objections and I'd just be like in my head, like mental reps and things. So it's a bit of practice. And then, once you get that opportunity to kind of perform, if you will, right? You get the objection. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for it, right? I knew they were going to throw this pitch. I got it. So that was some of the things I used to do just to kind of help me, create those parallels, but then again, like just practice and get ready for it.
And I'm glad you brought that part up too, because as you're talking, I'm thinking through like, similarly, I was not a natural salesperson. I'm an introvert more than I'm an extrovert. Anyone that says they like making cold calls is either lying or a psychopath. You can pick which one of those is worse, right? Yeah. I hated it too, but you said something that, I did as well, which I like connected the dots. Because what I did love to do is I loved to demo. I loved to run a demo and run the sales cycle. And I was able to connect the dots of like, even though I hate cold calling is what lets me run demos. And I was able to kind of, I think you said like parallel, like bridge it, like it's how did you learn that? Or more importantly, guess what did you connect to? You said growth, right? Like if I do these things, I'll grow. How did you connect those dots, or what did growth mean to you where it was worth going through that pain?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at first, my first sales job was one of those super aggressive 150 person sales floors. Like you couldn't hide. And so the environment for me was, if you don't perform, you're fired. Right. And in those environments, you learn a lot about potentially what not to do as a leader or as a manager. But to me, it was like, I can't fail. Right. There was this kind of fight or flight type mentality that kicked in. But I think that was really kind of the first one. And I questioned sales every day for 6 months. I would call my mom, be like, Mom, I don't know if this is for me. I think I made a mistake. And then I saw that first commission check and I was like, oh, right. So like, that was like kind of the first like parallel I made. And that was one of those things that was like, all right, like, keep on chasing this, keep fighting through. But then when I got good at it, and this is where I kind of hit a really cool part of my career where I got good at it and I started helping out others, right? There would be other new salespeople. I'd be like, ooh, I used to be terrible at that. Try this, right? And I started doing little coaching moments. And then I saw other people getting really good too. And I was like, whoa, now this is like personally gratifying, fulfilling for me, where I'm fired up because you just closed your first deal and I kind of helped and coached you through those moments. I don't even care about my pipeline. Like I'm getting after it. And of course, like, you're excited when you close a deal, but I was getting super hyped, and it was really rewarding for me to see others succeed when I was just kind of helping and coaching.
Mm-hmm. And I like this because it kind of segues where I wanted to go next a little bit is, how do you try to help instill this in your teams? Because it's one thing, right? Like, I can even hear your journey. I was like, dude, I was afraid of losing my job. Like, that's what motivated me early on. But I don't know you that well, but my assumption is you are not a lead by fear person. So how do you help develop this type of mindset with your team without it being, this, well, if you don't perform, you're going to lose your job. So that's your motivation. Like, how do you help your team develop this mindset?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I really like to get to understand people's whys, right? Whether it's you're working with people in the gym trying to achieve goals, you're working with somebody in sales, there's a reason someone wants to go through the pain to get a certain outcome. And it's deeper than, I just want to go make X amount of money, right? Well, what does that allow you to do, right? If you can achieve this goal, what does that mean for you? What does it mean for your family? What's your North Star? What are your values? So I think it's really trying to get into the specific motivations of each individual, but then trying to go those like layers deeper and like, okay, well, if this happens, if you achieve this goal, what does that mean, right? What does it allow you to then do? And then they start really like kind of like visualizing it and seeing it and believing in it, buying into it. So now it's like, okay, we got, I think it's talking through all of it, right? Like you're going to have to go through like these really tough things, some of this pain, this discomfort, but we got to grow. And the growth creates this opportunity, creates this outcome, and then this becomes your reality. So I like really kind of walking through those paths of understanding people's whys and what their values are.
Mm-hmm. And it's great. You asked one of my favorite questions that I work on with my managers and my people is like, you can ask people what their goals are. You ask that magic question, like, well, what changes if you accomplish it? Like, what will that let you do? How will you feel? Because, especially in sales, and a lot of managers are very lazy here. They say, what motivates you? And the sales rep says, money. Right? Like, y'all, to all my sales leaders listening right now, if money truly motivated everyone, you know what we wouldn't need? Coaches, managers, or quotas. If money motivated people, they would just do what it took to make as much money as possible, right? It doesn't motivate most people. It's like what they can do with it, what they hope it will do for them is so important. And so then if you think about that part of it, I guess, do you make sure your managers are asking that of their people? Like, how do you roll that out across a team? Because it's also a big difference. You might know how to do this, but you've been a VP, you've managed managers before. Like, how do you make sure your managers are having these conversations?
I think it's doing it with them, right? Like what I've found is actually, it's not just about my managers doing it with their teams. It's about me doing it with every level. And if I can go with the manager, I can go through this exercise, right? And now I know exactly how to motivate them, how to make them feel fulfilled and passionate, excited to be where they are and what they're doing. Then I can say, okay, cool. Like, here's the playbook, right? And then I can kind of coach them through the exercise that we did. I've done a really cool exercise with my team. It's like a big vision board. I'm like, okay. And I literally whiteboard this out. I'm like, here we are today. Fast forward 5 years. Who do you want to become? What do you want to get out of this? Right. And I think it's really, I think a lot more, any employee should look at their organization almost as a platform and like, what is the company going to help you become? Right. If you walk out of here in 5 years, who are you today? So I've done this where I visualize and it's a whiteboard and I take, pictures and I share it. So it's not just like, it's a really interactive session that, you can quickly pick up on and then execute. But for first-time managers, I'll sit in there, I'll help them, I'll coach them along. Like it's, I never want to throw somebody out on an island by themselves, but I think actually doing the exercise with them themselves, they can kind of then feel it. They're like, oh, wow, like, this is different.
I like that. I like that a lot. And now I actually want to backtrack here real quick, because I bet you there's people listening that can empathize with where you were when you started, right? Like hiding under the desk, hanging up on the prospect, right? Like that shaky, uneasy feeling. And how did you get through that? Right? How did you actually get through that? Because I do think people hear it and they get some of the advice, right? It's like, we just got to have a better mindset. Let's go back there real quick. Like what drove you through that time? And maybe even how long did that take? Because I also think people think it's going to feel that way forever when there's just a period of time. So like, how did you actually kind of get through it? What were the mental tricks or like the things that you went through? And how long did it take till you started to feel good? Because you said it, he's like, once I was good. Well, cool. That's there. What was that process to get there?
Yeah, man, it's, I'll tell you, it's not an overnight success type thing, man. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication. And I would say for me to really get into a good group, it probably took a couple of years, to be really honest with you. Mm-hmm. I think from there, though, I think one of the things I really focused on, and I think a lot of salespeople feel, is they feel like they're bothering people, right? Like there's a cold call, there's an email, oh, I'm bothering this person, right? And so I kind of had to flip my mindset and really get to a place where I'm like, no, like they should be excited and almost happy to hear from you, right? And the way I started breaking that down was, I got to fall in love with my product, and I got to be passionate about the product that I'm selling, the problems that we're solving, and who I'm solving them for. And not everybody has that. I didn't have it for a long time. So what I had to then do was, I had to read case studies. Like I would read our case studies religiously, because I'm like, wow, it does work. Yes. Right. And I could see those outcomes. Right. I would honestly, like, I'm a big believer, like you've got to be your own like hype man, right? Like you got to be like, have your highlight film. I know you've talked about this, but I would listen, like I would literally record my calls. I'd listen to them for coaching moments, but then my good ones, man, like you're having a rough day, you need that pick me up, like go like listen to that close when they're like, yup, send me the order form, right? Like that, because I think another part of this is that there is like that excitement, right? There's like that chemical change in your body that actually becomes a little addictive to like all these outcomes, right? So if you can hear those really positive calls, those really positive outcomes, you're going to start to kind of believe a bit more in what you're doing and the almost the mission that you have out to go help solve problems for your personas. So those are some of the things that I used to do just to help me get out of that funk of, I'm sorry to bother you, or like, you have that quick second for me, so that was a big one for me for sure. Mm-hmm.
And I love that, right? Like and you mentioned two different types of wins. There's listening to your own wins, but paying attention to the customer wins. I did the exact same thing with my team. This was like right as we we're kind of coming out of the pandemic, and like, morale was low. And also like, look, I want y'all to go watch and listen to a testimonial a day and like remind yourself of like what it is we actually do here and the help that it does provide to our prospects and all those things that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't reached out. But then those personal wins, like you hear yourself doing well, that's really motivating. And so for y'all listening, like get that brag book, get those good customer testimonials, get the recordings of when you closed the deal, and listening to those regularly, like really does help breed the success. Now you did use one word here that I want to actually keep going down is, how do you get back on track? So you said like when you get low or you get into a slump, right? Because it's not, for everyone listening, y'all know this if you're in sales, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, no matter what. You could be the best salesperson in the world, right? Like you go through slumps, so you lose some of that faith. Like what are some things you did to like get back on track? Like if you felt yourself kind of in a darker place?
Yeah, I think for me, there's two primary things. One is remind myself why I'm doing it, right? So it goes back to that why. And we're all going to have off days, bad months, bad quarters, whatever the case may be. But for me, reminding myself why I'm doing it, and if I achieve my goals, what does that mean for my family, right? I'm a big visual person, so I've got picture of my kids, my family behind me. That's my why, right? So I'm having a bad day. I don't want to pick up the phone. I turn around, I'm like, bang, like I got to, right? I'm doing it for them. So that's one of the things. Just remind yourself your why, make it really visual. And I think the next thing though is like, you got to put it all in perspective, right? Like this was said to me when I was in my first of many slumps, right? But I think it was like, you're not a heart surgeon. Like if you mess up, like you're not killing anybody. Things are good, right? So I think it also kind of goes back to like, put things in perspective. For me, I'd say over the last couple of years, I've really, really tried to implement and practice more gratitude for just waking up every day, my feet hitting the floor, right? My family, my health, a roof over my head, just some of the basics that people very easily take for granted. And the great things that I have. So like, you know, once you're able to just appreciate what you got, sometimes, at least for me, it allowed me to go and be like, all right, like I still got this. Like it ain't over. I still got fight left in me, and it kind of inspires and motivates me.
I love that. And we've talked about this so much. Like gratitude is so important, right? And I love the call out because I say this too, y'all. I was like, you guys, you're picking up a phone. You are picking up a phone or you are on a Zoom call. This is not heart surgery. This is not coal mining. This is not being a teacher in the inner city that's hard. What we do is scary. It's not hard, right? Rejection is scary. It is, y'all. That is what it is. I'm not downplaying that. But what we do isn't that hard when you really think about the comparisons of what we have to do and like what other people are doing day in and day out. We just have to make the choice every day. We just have to make the choice. And you hinted at something there, especially around gratitude, because when I reached out to you, you said like, all right, what topic? You said like mindset to have a long lasting and fulfilling career in sales, right? And I want to touch on that a little bit around like, what are some of the things that you found to be successful to get more fulfillment, right? From your job, from sales, like how do you kind of fill that bucket, so to speak?
Yeah, I think for me, like I mentioned before, like really early on in my career, I knew I wanted to take more of that like coaching path. And I say coaching pretty intentionally because I never wanted to like manage people. Like at first it was just like, I want to help. Like, again, I felt like I could be a better coach than a player. Mm-hmm. And I felt it was more rewarding for me to see others close their deals than even me going and closing my own. So early on, that's what it was about. And so for me, I love seeing progression and growth. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm just wired that way. Like I have this, 1% better every single day. And you got to be constantly like finding ways to better yourself. This sales game we're in, man, like you see it firsthand, like it evolves so quickly. So you always have to be learning and you always have to be adopting and evolving. So I don't know. I think for me, like seeing others get better and achieve their goals gets me really fulfilled. And I've got, again, because I've been at this for a long time now. I've had sales reps that have worked for me. I had a sales rep, he worked for me for 10 years. And seeing where we started together to who he is today with the family. I've had other reps that like SDR, she was like, I was like, you're going to be my boss one day. Like, I was just so excited for her potential to see it come to fruition. So I think for me, it's just like, when I see other people achieve their goals, like I'm achieving mine and we're good. Like that's where I get a lot of fulfillment personally.
So actually, I think then this is a really, I can't say it's a good question before I ask it, but this is where I'm going with this. How did you earn that first leadership role? Because I think people listen, like, yeah, that's me too. But like, I'm not the top performer. I'm not going to get promoted to management or leadership because I'm not the top of the board. How did you earn the right to, in a lot of ways, take the focus off yourself and start leading people? Was that at a company or did you leave the company to get your first leadership role? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that is a great question. So my first leadership opportunity was a promotion from within.
Okay.
I was not top of the leaderboard, but I did have like 2 premier deals that closed. So like I was like put on the map, if you will. Right. And I remember telling my manager at the time, I was like, I think I want your job. Like, I don't want to take your job from you, right? Like,
Right.
I want to be like coaching and helping. And I think the reason that, and don't get me wrong, there were others that were much better than me, better, delivered more, sold more, everything. But I was able to show the ability to allow others to succeed, right? Like I could take my talents and spread them across others. And so like the uplift I had across many people was like, whoa. And so I planted the seeds early. I think that was really key. I think I was in sales for like 9 months when I talked to my manager the first time. And I remember she was like, I see it. Like, I really see it. And I was like, ooh, cool. Right. So I got super excited about it. And of course she was like, same thing. She was like, be the top biller, be the top biller. And I was like, that's just not me necessarily. Like, I'm going to go after it. I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. But I quickly realized, well, when I'm that manager, like, I'm not the rainmaker, right? Let me get people excited and motivated, feeling good. Let me coach them and help them strategize through deals. Like, if I can coach and show that I'm a proven coach that helps people execute at a high level, I can get that shot.
There we go.
So it was really about me just trying to prove that I can teach. I'm a phenomenal teacher. I think I'm a great motivator. I think I'm a good like team builder and create some good culture. And if I can show that in little like phases, I think I'll get my shot.
And I love that. And I was hoping that was where you were going to take it, because I think people always think, well, I haven't been made a manager yet, so I haven't had an opportunity to manage. And it's like, no. Like, if you like, oh, I get so much fulfillment from helping other people. Well, where's the evidence you've been helping other people? Like, start doing the things, right? Like, making other people around you become so obvious. And if you're standing out there, that's how you can break through, versus like, oh, like if I were just a manager, that's where I get fulfillment. Okay. Start doing those things, like make sure, like, and that's there. And I do also like the call out too of making it known early. I think a lot of people either never voice it and they just hope they get picked, right? Or they wait too long and then they get disgruntled. Right. Yeah. They wait too long. They say, oh, a manager opening popped up, I want it. It's like, well, you should have said something 6 months ago, 9 months ago. Now it's too late. We already have another candidate. We have whatever else. And so I think voicing it early, y'all, is really, really important. And so as we kind of come towards the end here, man, if you think about some of the things that you've either seen in your success or the teams that you've led, like what other key kind of mindset, tactics or characteristics have you seen to really lead to higher success rates?
Yeah, I think a common one though, and this is a bit more general, but I did want to make sure I touched on it, is who you are in your personal life is going to bleed into your professional life and vice versa. Right. So again, I made parallels to whether it was fitness or being an athlete. I'll be able to draw those in. I think a lot of people try to say, I'm going to be this salesperson, right? And then they're not developing in their own personal life. Right. And so identifying things, it can be things you want to do in your personal life that are going to be growth and learnings and developments that are going to bleed into your professional life. I think definitely the most notable one for me was like the moment I became a father, I became a better leader. Right. And like that was an education in school that you don't get at like any business school, nowhere. Right. Like there's no leadership coach in the world better than being a parent. Now, don't go be a parent just because you want to become a better leader. Right.
Good call out.
Right. But for me, I thought it was again, one of those aha moments for me that once I realized that, I think the rate at which it became easier and felt more normal, that was a big one. But the last one I'll kind of leave, which is a bit more specific, especially in sales. If you're just earlier on in your career, play the long game, right? You have to have the mindset of the long game. I'm sure that's with the relationships you build. That's with everything. Deals come and go. I've had customers who didn't work with me for 2-3 years, and finally, bang, those came on and were some of the best customers. People that I met early on in my career, right? Tremendous relationships that just continue to blossom. And later on in my career, like we're all helping each other out. So playing the long game is huge, because it's easy to think, oh, like this month's quota, right? Like boom, boom, boom. But what about next month, right? What about the pipeline for next quarter? So playing the long game, I think it's a big one.
Yeah, I like that, because when you think long game, you start to be more consistent. Right? I would way rather have a rep hit 100% every month than 125, 92, 115, 76, 150. Like,
yeah,
people would ask like, oh, like, how do you feel about like sandbagging, so to speak? I was like, look, I would way rather you be consistent and every month be feeling good than blow out a month, because also in sales, we blow out the month. And then the very next month, we're stressed. We just had our best month ever. And then we're stressed the next month, and we don't even reward ourselves for the good month, because then we have a bad month. And now we're right back in that cycle again.
Yeah, man. Yeah. When the calendar flips and you're back at zero, you're like,
hello, zero, my old friend. We made that a song internally. It's like every month you wake up and it's zero. So cool, my man. Well, this was great. And so much of what we focused on here, really, it does fall into that live better kind of advice, around mindset fulfillment. So I'm going to flip the question, right? What would your sell better advice be? Because obviously you have had a phenomenal career in sales. Normally I ask people like what their live better advice is at the end, but you've been covering the live better side. What would your sell better advice be for people listening?
Sell better. I think it's one of the things I talk to my reps about a lot is just being more authentic, being more human, right? I think it's easy to become a robot. You got to ask these discovery questions and qualify you as right. I think it's so easy to fall into that. And all of that stuff is really important. But literally before this, I was on a call with my reps. I'm like, man, just like be authentic, be a human, ask the questions, crack some jokes. Like it doesn't have to be this really uptight, rigid thing. Like let it flow, just be you, and don't put so much pressure and stress on you. So I think as you're thinking about, your sales process, think about how do you apply your own specific human touch to it, right? Like there's only one you in the world, right? That's your experience you can deliver. So deliver it, right? Mine's like really bad, cheesy jokes throughout the sales process. I kill that game, man. Right. So I think it's just like, be you, be more human, be more authentic.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I'm glad that's where we wrapped on this, y'all. And funny enough, I had a post about this recently too, of like, have more fun with this. Like,
I love that.
Like, and if you're gonna go down swinging, but like go down swinging, having fun. Like try things you haven't tried before, make the joke, send the song, do whatever, because it's a better way to sell, right? And it's memorable. And like, I just wish more people did that. Actually, funny enough, in my office here somewhere, I might have lost it. Actually, there it is. I have like the sales hat, right? Sales hat, but I don't use it for the way people think it would be used. I use it as an example to take the sales hat off. Take your sales hat off for a second and just be Kevin, be KD, be Betty, be Jenny, like just be, right? And see what happens. So my man, this was great. Where can people get more of you? Where are you putting out content? Like where can they connect? Like how can people get more of what you're putting out there?
Yeah, for sure. I'm really active on LinkedIn. So just hit me up on LinkedIn. I love just connecting with people, talking shop, learning more and more. Again, I think every single person you interact with, you can learn something from and take something from. So check me out on LinkedIn, but definitely hit me up. We'd love to talk shop.
Awesome, my dude. Well, I appreciate you. This was great. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be. I'm sure we'll have many talks about this down the road, man. So thank you so much for your time, energy, and attention, dude.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man.
Hell yeah.